Tonight, we're following multiple breaking stories, starting with the deadly infernos ravaging LA County. Apocalyptic scenes, tens of thousands on the run as homes and buildings burn to the ground. Now concerns water is running out and crews are stretched too thin.
Mother Nature's in charge here and we're just reacting to it.
Also breaking, what we've learned about Ottawa's plan to counter Trump's tariff threat and how the premiers are already pushing back.
I know the premiers have a strong plan.
And welcome to Canada. CBC News digs into immigration in this country and the challenges some newcomers face.
To me, I just feel we're letting talents waste.
Including those living in the shadows.
If you're undocumented, how do they pay you?
Why they're now speaking out.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Tonight, Los Angeles is surrounded by multiple fast and fierce wildfires, which have now turned deadly. The spreading infernos are burning out of control, with officials warning of a diminishing water supply. Plus, the extremely strong winds are making the situation an unprecedented disaster. It is estimated more than 1,000 buildings have been lost. There are at least 3 major fires burning. The Palisades fire is the largest, forcing more than 40,000 people to evacuate. At least 5 people are dead, 2 of them killed in the Eaton fire. Aaron Collins is inside the evacuation zone tonight. So, Aaron, I gather you just drove through the destruction. Can you give us a sense of what you saw?
Yeah, Adrian, I mean, total devastation. We're standing on the Pacific Coast Highway looking south towards Los Angeles. You can see up on that hill, that fire burning, that's the Palisades fire. Obviously, it's still going. We just drove through the neighborhood at the top of that hill. Total devastation. Houses leveled, neighborhoods leveled, entire streets burnt to the ground, commercial districts not there anymore. We saw a bank machine just standing in the middle of a field, it seemed. Really not much there to look at that's left standing. And of course, Adrian, it's not the only fire that's threatening the Los Angeles area.
The Los Angeles area under siege, surrounded by fire.
I'm trying to find my dad.
Tens of thousands of people scrambling to get out. Others staying put to fight for their homes.
The fire was basically encircling us. You could hear explosions all around us.
It's really scary when you can see the flames coming up over the houses 2 blocks away.
But leaving, not easy.
I was running up to the 3rd story, 2nd story, carrying people down, just picking them up because we do have a lot of wheelchair people in here.
Resources and manpower on the ground stretched paper thin. More than 1 million people without power, too. In some areas, crews running out of water to beat back the flames.
Mother Nature's in charge here and we're just reacting to it.
This fire fanned by winds not seen in this area for a decade, overnight reaching 160 kilometers an hour.
We lost a lot of things. Partners, smaller photographs, and my grandpa's antique chest.
Those losses not lost on officials here. A federal state of emergency now in effect.
So over 1,000 structures already that have been destroyed, 100,000+ people that have been evacuated, lives lost, traditions, lifestyles, places torn asunder.
In less than 2 days, these fires have already left their mark. More than 1,000 buildings destroyed. The first deaths starting to be reported.
And Adrian, the fires that caused all that devastation, well, they're still completely out of control.
And Aaron, from looking at the forecast, I gather those powerful winds are expected just to continue right into tomorrow.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're not as bad as we saw last night in this area, but they're not good news for the people trying to put out the fires. You can see burning behind me. Winds are still going to be blowing. Humidity still quite low, and that's not good news for the firefighters trying to put out the several fires threatening the Los Angeles area.
All right, Aaron Collins near Los Angeles tonight. Thanks, Aaron. And this is the scene tonight in the Hollywood Hills, where a new fire has broken out in the Runyon Canyon. New evacuation orders were put into place, which include the Hollywood Bowl and the Chinese Theater. The flames are not far from notable areas like Mulholland Drive and the Hollywood sign. Now, Ottawa says it's ready to help California beat back the fires. The Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Harjit Sajjan, posted he's in contact with his U.S. counterpart, saying that given our experience in Jasper this summer, we're offering our expertise and that resources and equipment will be mobilized as needed. Quebec and a BC-based aviation company have water bombers and helicopters already fighting the fire. Meanwhile, Canada is bracing for a potential trade fight with the incoming U.S. president, and we have new information tonight about Ottawa's plan to hit back. Katie Simpson is breaking those details for us tonight. So, Katie, take us through what you're hearing.
There's a confidential document circulating among senior officials in Ottawa listing hundreds of American-made goods that Canada is considering targeting for retaliation to slap tariffs on those American imports should Canada be forced to respond. Final decisions have not been made, but according to a senior Canadian government source, the list includes a wide range of steel and aluminum products, ceramics, including sinks and toilets, glassware, flowers, some plastic products, and Florida orange juice. This would only happen if Trump delivers on his tariff threat. He warned Canada and Mexico, unless border security improvements are made, both countries would be hit with 25% tariffs on his first day in office. The source says officials around the prime minister are increasingly convinced Trump is just going to do it. So why these products? It's all about extracting maximum political pressure. The steel goods are largely made in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Those, of course, are swing states. Also, Canada has to be careful. I'm told officials don't want to make life more expensive for Canadians because, remember, when tariffs are applied, the added cost is usually passed on to the consumer. Adrian.
All right. Katie Simpson in Washington. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
Now, Canada's premiers are also pushing back against Trump's tariff threat. They met tonight to hash out a plan to protect the provinces from economic turmoil. Kate McKenna now with one premier's approach and frustration over Ottawa's response.
Ontario's premier says the federal government's got to step up.
There's a lack of leadership right now in Ottawa.
Before meeting with provincial leaders Wednesday to plan for Trump's tariff, Ford pitched a plan to boost the energy partnership between Canada and the United States. It's his latest charm offensive, directed at Americans.
Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario, Canada.
He's been appearing on American TV, trying to persuade viewers that Donald Trump should abandon his plan to hit Canadian goods with big tariffs.
We can come together on a great trade deal.
But instead of backing down, Trump is amping things up. He's repeatedly said Canada should become an American state. This week, he went even further.
Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
I think we have to take him at his word at this point. It is what he has clearly said. He's not retracted. It's not been, his staff didn't come back and say, no, this is not what he meant. He went, it is now the policy of the United States of America.
Some Trudeau ministers initially brushed off Trump's 51st state comments as a joke. Now, nobody's laughing.
I think that when President-elect Trump talks, we need to listen, and we need to take him very seriously.
All of this is unfolding as Parliament is suspended, while the Liberals look for a new leader.
It's one of the most consequential economic moments this country has been in for quite some time.
I know the premiers have a strong plan, but we want to see where the federal government stands right now.
Justin Trudeau is in Washington, where he'll be talking tariffs with American business leaders. He's set to meet with Canada's premiers next week, and they're planning their own trip to the U.S. Capitol next month. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Donald Trump's threats are also hanging over the race to replace Justin Trudeau. And as Ashley Burke tells us, at least one potential contender is now saying he's out.
Justin Trudeau on the way into a meeting with MPs about his way out as leader. The clock's ticking to replace him. And now a high-profile minister many Liberals want to run says he won't.
I decided that the most important thing I should do
over the next few months is my job as Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs.
Dominic LeBlanc says that decision came down to Donald Trump and his tariff threat.
I will be solely focused on the real economic threat.
Melanie Joly says she's seized with that too, but is considering a bid to be the next Prime Minister.
I very much know that I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs at a time where it's extremely difficult with the American administration, the incoming one. And so that's why I'll continue my reflection.
Are you running to be the next leader? Other cabinet ministers reflecting too.
I think it's important that we have a candidate who understands the whole country.
Well, I've been consistent that I'm seriously considering a bid for the leadership, but we need to know the rules.
I want to ensure that I have a sufficient amount of support to be competitive in the race.
Trudeau's former deputy prime minister also viewed by some Liberals as a top contender. Publicly, Chrystia Freeland isn't saying anything about her intentions, but privately is making calls. Her bombshell resignation from cabinet last month became a pivotal moment, leading to insurmountable pressure for Trudeau to resign and triggering a leadership race within just weeks of Trump's inauguration.
It's important that we do get this started as soon as possible. I think this very much should have started earlier.
We're right into a leadership race now, and a bunch of people stepping up to say, I want to be Prime Minister, and so on. So it's going to be a rough couple of months, I think, with people beating each other to death.
Out of those saying they want to be Prime Minister, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney says he's considering it. And former BC Premier Christy Clark has been preparing for a possible leadership run for months.
So, Ashley, as I understand it, tomorrow the party is expected to get a little bit closer to figuring out how this leadership race will unfold.
Exactly, Adrian. After days of formal and informal meetings, the Liberal National Executive will meet with the Prime Minister Thursday night. The party has to figure out the formal rules going forward, and there isn't a lot of time. The party only has until the end of March before Parliament returns, and opposition parties try and trigger an election this spring.
All right, Ashley Burke in Ottawa. Thank you. There's growing reaction tonight to the news that Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, is ending its fact-checking program in the U.S. Nisha Patel now on what's behind the change and why there's concern here, too.
Two of the world's biggest social media platforms are getting rid of fact-checkers, starting in the U.S.
The fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the U.S.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says to reduce censorship, Facebook and Instagram will instead implement community notes, similar to what's already happening on X, where commenting on the accuracy of posts is left to users. The company will also ease restrictions on topics like immigration and gender.
Time to get back to our roots around free expression.
It's a sweeping reversal for the tech giant, which started fact checks in 2016. And comes as the company tries to improve relations with the incoming U.S. president.
I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook, I think they've come a long way.
Nobel laureate Maria Ressa warned ending fact-checking would boost misinformation with dangerous consequences.
If Facebook allows lies to spread faster than the facts, it will splinter our reality. It will break down the shared reality, making journalism and democracy impossible.
It will be a bit more of a free-for-all.
This law professor says there have been real concerns about over-moderation by Meta and the suppression of legitimate speech.
So this feels like a bit of a course correction, but clearly it's not without its risks. If what we find is that we swing so far in the other direction.
Hate speech, threatening speech, foreign interference, clear scientific misinformation. All of that content is going to be easier to find.
This expert says social media users should be more wary about the content they consume.
Go through their social feeds, go through the sources where you're getting information from.
Meta will roll out its new policy in the U.S. this year, but as for Canada, there will be no changes for now. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
An American who fled to Canada after being convicted for his role in the January 6th riot has now been arrested in BC. The Canada Border Services Agency says officers arrested Anthony Vo in Whistler on Monday. Vo was convicted for his role in the attack on the U.S. Capitol and sentenced to 9 months in prison. But he's been hiding out in Canada, where he filed for refugee asylum. Vo told CBC News last week he's hoping for a pardon when Donald Trump returns to the White House. Well, CBC News is digging into immigration in this country in a new series called Welcome to Canada, told through the eyes of people who've experienced it. Part of the series is a survey commissioned by CBC News of about 1,500 newcomers, people who came here in the last 10 years. More than 80% said they are satisfied with life in Canada, but nearly the same amount believe Canada has accepted too many immigrants without proper planning for things like adequate housing or job opportunities. And jobs for internationally trained professionals are really difficult to come by. Canada needs doctors, but as Vanessa Lee shows us, for foreign-trained physicians, getting a job here is not easy.
It's the sign of an ailing system with no overnight cure. 6.5 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. And this pool of physicians is ready and waiting to contribute their skills.
A lot of us, international medical doctors, we are willing to work hard and to do what it takes just to get to our final goal.
Ismenda Ramirez has worked as a family doctor in the Dominican Republic. After moving to Canada, she spent countless hours again studying to become a doctor here. During this time, she has worked at McDonald's and is currently a medical assistant.
Many of us doesn't find jobs, so I was grateful for that.
Despite passing her Canadian medical exams, Ramirez hasn't been able to land a residency, a crucial stage where doctors gain hands-on experience. A major issue is that lack of residency spots. Last year, 95% of graduates from Canadian schools landed a placement, but only 42% of international medical graduates were successful. That means 931 didn't get a placement. Advocates say more funding is needed, but
in order to put more people into a residency program, you have to have more people there to be the mentors. And so I think that is a significant bottleneck.
Another complication, all 13 provinces and territories have separate licensing requirements.
Even me as the president of the Canadian Medical Association, I find it challenging to understand what the different options are and how they work.
An alternate path, something called a practice-ready assessment, is an option in 9 provinces. The first step, candidates are evaluated under the supervision of a physician for at least 12 weeks. But here's the catch. To qualify for the program, they must have recently worked as a doctor, forcing some to go abroad.
It's a big challenge because there are lots of things going back home. It's not safe.
Ogeni Fego Akpomi had to go back to Nigeria last year to get that recent experience.
To me, I just feel we're letting talents waste.
In Quebec and Ontario, advocacy groups tell us there are more than 3,500 international medical graduates. The vast majority are not working as physicians. There are fears doctors will simply leave if changes aren't made to make the process more simple and transparent. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Toronto.
It's not just newcomers struggling to find their footing in this country. There are many without any legal status scrambling to eke out a living.
For a Canadian that doesn't know about picking strawberry, it's a really hard work.
We speak with undocumented workers living in secret. Europe on edge over Trump's threats.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes.
But how seriously are people in Greenland taking the threat? And a corgi to the rescue after its owner slips and falls.
He gave me a kiss on the cheek and he ran away.
We're back in 2. Israel's military says it's recovered the body of another hostage in Gaza. Yusuf al-Zaydani, an Israeli Bedouin who was kidnapped during the Hamas-led October 7th attacks, was reportedly found in an underground tunnel. Israel says it's examining another recovered body on suspicion it may be his son Hamza. Until now, both were among the hostages Israel believed were still alive in Gaza after 15 months of war. Well, politicians in Europe are sending a message to Donald Trump tonight. Greenland is not up for grabs. This after Trump says he plans to take control of the Arctic island with or without military force. Chris Brown now with how people there are reacting.
Donald Trump says he wants to make Greenland's riches American property. And like Canadians, people there are struggling to understand how serious to take his threat.
Kunne du tænke dig at blive amerikaner?
Would you like to become an American? Asked the reporter.
Jeg kan ikke lide dem.
Not me. I don't want that.
De må godt besøge os.
You can visit us, she says, but nothing else.
Igen.
We need it for national security. That's for the free world.
Trump stunned the world by suggesting Denmark should turn the giant island over. And if not, he could take it by force. Arriving in Copenhagen Wednesday, Greenland's PM Mutebe Oliu called Trump's comments serious and said Greenland belongs to Greenlanders. Denmark's foreign minister gave a cautious response. I don't think we're in a foreign policy crisis, said Lars Rasmussen. I see a president on his way into the White House who has a heightened focus on the Arctic. But Trump's remarks implying using force against a NATO ally and unilaterally redrawing national borders have rattled Europeans. Every country must adhere to the inviolability of borders, said Germany's chancellor. Trump's son, Don Jr., flew into Nuuk for a few hours on Tuesday, presumably to underscore his dad's seriousness. This Danish analyst says until Trump actually makes an official move, caution from the Danish government is likely wise.
They've been extremely diplomatic in their response and emphasizing that we need to keep calm and maintain friendships and alliances and not disrupt them.
Greenland's 57,000 mainly indigenous people were already in the midst of an emotional debate over their island's future, with many determined to end its colonial status. But few appear to consider swapping Danish rulers for American ones as a serious option. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
This month, CBC News is unpacking how newcomers feel about life in Canada, but there are also many others without any status at all, hoping to get a chance to stay here.
If you're undocumented, how do they pay you?
Gosh.
The precarious working conditions for those living on the margins.
They were robbing me from my rights, what I deserve.
3 easy detox tips for gut health.
And we do a gut check on those detox claims.
What do you think?
I think you couldn't pay me to drink these.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
It's just pretty devastating. This is pretty devastating. I don't think LA's seen anything like this before.
Neighborhoods consumed, city blocks ravaged. The fatal fires scorching the Los Angeles area are uncontained tonight. Their toll growing by the hour. Well, LA's legendary film industry is already being impacted by the fires. As Magda Gabrisalasa shows us, some of the stars behind Hollywood's fantasies are confronting some tragic realities.
As wildfires rip through Los Angeles County, some of Hollywood's familiar faces have been forced to flee.
The smoke was so black. The house across the street was on fire. The house next door was on fire.
Actor James Woods fears his Pacific Palisades home is gone. Steve Guttenberg from the Police Academy Films helped clear the way for first responders and saw some of the destruction along the way.
And there were trees coming down on Sunset, burning. Our live theater playhouse is on fire. The Women's Club is on fire.
Among the structures threatened, notable Hollywood landmarks, including this high school used in hits like Freaky Friday, according to local media. With several wildfires affecting the region, this Hollywood tour operator wonders about other recognizable sites, too.
The Father of the Bride house from that particular film of Steve Martin, George Banks' house, that's out that way. Up towards the mountains more, not sure the state of that.
The ripple effects of the fire conditions and strong winds continue. Universal Studios Hollywood shut its doors today. TV productions like Grey's Anatomy and Hacks are on pause. Sunday's Critics' Choice Awards now postponed.
It's an eerie feeling in Los Angeles right now.
Canadian star Sean Majumder posted this from LA, showing the sunrise glowing through a haze of wildfire smoke. Fellow Canadian George Strombolopoulos also stunned by what he's witnessing.
We see smoke all the time and air quality effects, but I've never seen it. In my 20-odd years
of splitting my time between Toronto and LA, I've never seen this.
Stars taking to social media to call for prayers and urge everyone to stay safe as firefighters continue to risk it all against the flames. Magda Gebre-Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Dietary detoxes, a post-holiday trend aimed at cleansing the system and starting the new year fresh. But do they work?
I think you couldn't pay me to drink these.
Debunking the detox. But first,
we are the people you're trying to kick out of the country. We are human beings.
An estimated 500,000 people living in Canada without any legal status, taking themselves into the shadows just to survive. In this installment of our new Welcome to Canada series, Lindsay Duncombe spoke to some of those undocumented migrants who share their experiences of living like ghosts.
They live in the shadows. Hundreds of thousands of people across Canada. Afraid to emerge. They are undocumented. Not supposed to be here. Living and working in secret.
Es fuerte tener que lidiar todos los días.
Amelia is one of them, a single mom from Mexico cleaning an Airbnb in a big Canadian city. We aren't using her real name or showing her face because she's undocumented.
Y afirmo que Canadá es un muy buen país, pero que a veces, o si no, todo el tiempo, el sistema nos ve como fantasmas. No existimos.
When we think of a workforce of ghosts doing manual labor, the jobs many don't want to do, we usually think of the United States and its racially charged debate about what to do with 11 million people in that country illegally. But Canada has an extensive underground economy too, and in the face of changing immigration attitudes and policy, workers are coming out of the shadows, asking that their voices be heard.
La causa principal fue, o la decisión fue porque nuestra vida sí estaba en peligro, o está en peligro.
Amelia left Mexico 5 years ago on a tourist visa, fleeing cartels, she says. She's too scared to return. She has 2 kids, a 15-year-old born in Mexico and a 2-year-old born here with autism. They live in a 1-room basement apartment. She works 7 days a week.
Mi trabajo es haciendo limpieza, en postconstrucción, limpieza de casas, limpiezas de Airbnbs. Conforme se vaya prestando el trabajo es como yo voy adquiriendo.
If you're undocumented, how do they pay you?
Cash.
No one really knows how many undocumented people are in Canada. The government estimates there are up to 500,000. Migrant groups say it could be higher.
This isn't about people pouring over the border. Many people become undocumented because they stay longer than they're legally allowed to. Say someone doesn't return to their home country after an asylum claim is denied, or stays after their student, visitor, or temporary worker status expires.
Everyone has a different story about how they ended up living in the shadows. The man leading this iconic Canadian cheer lived for years with a secret.
Basketball fans, welcome into Canada's home for Talking Hoops. This is The Hangout. I am Akil Augustine.
Basketball fans know Akil Augustine as a courtside star, host for NBA Canada. But before all of that, Augustine was a kid from Trinidad and Tobago, without papers, undocumented. He was brought to Canada when he was 4 to live with an aunt. He didn't find out he was undocumented until his friends started getting jobs.
And as weeks go on, you keep asking questions, then you realize, oh, no one knows what the hell's going on. And so I finally figured out, yeah, I'm undocumented, and
What was that realization like?
Well, it's bad news, so it's scary.
Yeah.
Your stomach drops a couple floors.
The hardest part was getting sick and no health card.
I remember one time I got the flu and my family was away. And it was the worst flu I ever had, and I knew I couldn't go to the doctor. And so I was alone in the house, and I remember it took me a whole day to get back up the stairs. So I'd take like one flight of stairs and I'd be out for like an hour. I was just so out of breath, I couldn't breathe. I think that was probably one of the scarier moments.
It took a decade to navigate a path to citizenship, thanks to community connections, lawyers, teachers, mentors. They made an application for status under humanitarian and compassionate grounds.
Well, this is probably the most important thing I own, which is my certificate of Canadian citizenship, which I got back in 2015. You ever play tag? Home safe?
Yeah.
It's kind of like home safe.
Now he works to help other undocumented people get status.
I can provide anecdotal evidence that if you bring a little kid from Trinidad who doesn't know much and raise him in Canada under the great education system and support systems that we have, he can flourish and add things to our society. That's what I know.
How to deal with hundreds of thousands of undocumented people is a political and social problem for Ottawa. Increasingly, the government is sending them home. In the last fiscal year, Canada Border Services says more than 15,000 people were deported for breaking immigration rules.
We've seen significant numbers of deportation, I think historic highs of the numbers of removals from this country this year. We're very serious about that.
That's a shift in priority. When he got the job 3 years ago, Immigration Minister Mark Miller was told to explore ways of regularizing status for undocumented workers. 3 years later, it's not on the table.
There's no consensus at this time as to what to do.
We are the people you're trying to kick out of the country. We are human beings, and we are not taps to be turned on and off.
A group of undocumented workers is fighting for status. Manaya Jess joined this protest in Ottawa, even though by being here, by showing her face, she risks being sent back to Jamaica.
I'm here fighting for status for everyone, every migrant in this country. I came here as a migrant farm worker, and I was physical and verbally mistreated.
Jess came to Canada twice as a temporary farm worker picking apples. The third time she came to Canada, she worked on a strawberry farm.
For a Canadian that doesn't know about picking strawberry, it's a really hard work.
Shortly after arriving at the farm, she got hurt. She says her employer wouldn't help her get medical attention.
So they were robbing me from my rights, what I deserve.
So she left the job, but not the country, and began to live in the shadows. Every morning, she walks through this forest near her home, imagining what it would be like if her children could join her.
My youngest son don't know me, so it's not much relationship there because I left him when he was so small. So it's hard.
And it could get harder. Canadian attitudes towards immigration, both legal and illegal, are changing.
We didn't get the balance quite right.
In October, the government announced plans to cut back on legal immigration. Akil Augustine feels the pushback against immigration growing, and he gets it.
It's fear. If the economy is shrinking and you may not be gainfully employed and new people are coming into your neighborhood and taking government money for social services and stuff that you feel you should be entitled to, that will bother somebody. And I don't know that that's based solely in racism as much as it's based in the fight for survival for you and your families.
Amelia feels that attitude too.
Algo nos trajo aquí. La necesidad, a lo mejor la persecución, otras veces el racismo. Todo el mundo viene por una circunstancia, a cambiar su vida y a nombrar aquí Canadá tu hogar.
And for that chance, however slim, it's worth living in fear, hiding like a ghost.
One of the things I learned about talking to people who study migration, Adrian, is that there's a real chance the number of undocumented migrants could increase in Canada.
Okay, Lindsay, why do they think that is?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is that it's now tougher to become a permanent resident in Canada. The federal government reduced the number of spots. So that means people who are here on temporary visas may overstay and then they become undocumented. And also, we do not know what is going to happen in the United States. Donald Trump has promised to deport the more than 11 million people in that country illegally, and Canada could look like an option for some of them.
And what's your sense of how Canadians feel about people who are called undocumented at this point?
Well, overall, I think many Canadians don't really know that there are this many people existing in the shadows and working under the table. We tend to think of this as an American issue, but there are indications a lot of Canadians support sending people who shouldn't be here home. A recent Leger poll for the Institute of Canadian Studies shows that 48% of Canadians believe mass deportations are needed to stop illegal migration. And Adrian, that's just 1% lower than the views found in the U.S. in the same study.
Oh, interesting. All right. Thank you. That's Lindsay Duncombe in Vancouver. Our Welcome to Canada series continues Friday when David Common introduces us to some Sudanese Canadians who claim there's a double standard when it comes to this country's immigration policy, and they believe institutional racism is a major factor.
It is a war being waged on the Sudanese people. A country under siege.
The biggest humanitarian crisis in the world.
There is no question that this is the worst war in modern history.
An offer of help from Canada.
We have to do something as a country. Canadians wouldn't forgive us if we didn't do it.
But delays leading to disappointment.
My patience is thinning, it's really thinning.
And far worse.
How do you feel that your brother-in-law died while you were waiting?
Very sad and heartbreaking.
It's very problematic and it's racist.
I don't know why this is happening.
Our Welcome to Canada series continues through January and beyond. For the full story of our unique national survey of 1,500 newcomers and more, go to cbcnews.ca/welcome to Canada. Well, next, the big promises about natural cleanses.
Here's how to detox your kidneys naturally.
But do any of them help? We get the scoop. The end of another holiday season leaves many of us searching for a reset.
People were worried about gaining weight.
Now comes a deluge of dietary detoxes claiming to cleanse your system and leave you healthier. But is that the best answer?
We don't need to do cleanses or detoxes or over-exercise.
As Jennifer Yoon found out, that's a sentiment echoed by many doctors. They warn about detox regimes promising a quick fix with little scientific backing.
A $275 smoothie and juice detox.
It's Shazandra goji berries.
That promises to cleanse your organs.
What our detox does, it'll clean and strengthen your liver.
It's light rhythmic strokes.
Or a $200 massage.
So your lymphatic system is responsible for expelling toxins out of your body.
That promises to drain so-called toxins out of your lymph nodes.
It basically helps to manually push your lymphatic fluid so that you're getting a natural detox.
The dictionary definition of a toxin is a poison produced by a living organism. Things that aren't necessarily toxins can still be pretty bad for you, like alcohol or overeating.
Here's how to detox your kidneys naturally.
The B vitamins, which also help you detox.
3 easy detox tips for gut health.
This is the time of the year when the word detox starts trending online again. And for many of us, after the holidays, a reset sounds great. But what exactly are you supposedly detoxing from? And do you need a pricey regimen of juices, smoothies, massages, and supplements to get them out of your system?
Most things, that if you consume them in too much excess, they can be harmful.
And our bodies break down harmful chemicals as part of daily organ function.
The liver's breaking down all these things, making them into sort of non-toxic products and then excreting them.
These are detox juices. This one has lettuce, lemon, and this one has activated charcoal. We took some juices sold as detoxes to a toxicologist. What do you think?
I think you couldn't pay me to drink these. The heart and the liver don't need detoxification, and if they did, it would certainly not come from a smoothie bar.
They might taste good, they might feel good, but I think it's important not to do harm.
Some so-called detoxes can actually seriously harm your health.
We usually see a couple of people every year that have taken something often for the purpose of detoxing or improving liver health or something that actually causes liver injury.
His suggestion to reset after an indulgent holiday?
Take it easy, slow down, don't drink so much, don't eat so much, maybe rest.
And unfortunately, there is no silver bullet. Healthier habits go a long way. All this isn't to say you shouldn't try out new things to have a healthier start to the new year. But for example, dry January, Dr. Yearling says that probably is going to improve your sleep and make you feel better and give you a chance to re-examine your relationship with the substance. You just don't need to buy a product, he says, to start off 2025 in a healthy way.
Okay, there's a good tip. But what are some other good things for people to keep in mind as they just wade through that sea of information about wellness and health online?
A little bit of critical thinking will take you a long way. So what credentials does the person who's telling you about so-called detoxes really have? What do they stand to gain by saying what they're saying? And Dr. Feld says another thing that's important to remember, something that's natural doesn't mean that it can't hurt you. And dosage matters. What's fine in small doses can really hurt you when consumed in excess. Adrienne.
Okay, this is good intel. Health reporter Jennifer Yoon in Montreal for us tonight. Coming up, sometimes big heroes come in very small packages.
Not only is he cute and smart, but he's a hero too.
Thanks, buddy.
Waldo the corgi comes to the rescue. Next, in our moment. This little guy, Waldo, is a star, a bit of a local celebrity, known as the Lederhosen Corgi in Kitchener, Ontario, simply because of his appearances at Oktoberfest. But these days, he's getting called something else, a hero, after his owner took a nasty fall and Waldo came to a rescue. So tonight, Waldo the Corgi's quick thinking is our moment.
My corgi Waldo saved my life. We're on a routine morning walk and I slipped. Instantly, I felt and heard a loud crack and I didn't have my phone on me. I looked at my leg and it was pretty gruesome. It truly was like my body was facing north, my foot was facing fully east, and my corgi Waldo jumps right into gear. He gave me a kiss on the cheek and he ran away, which is very out of character for him. Like, he's always by my side. And I see him in the distance tugging on a stranger's pant leg. Waldo starts barking and leading him toward me. Just as the stranger gets close enough, Waldo takes off in a different direction. And sure enough, Waldo comes around the corner moments later with our landlord and gave me another kiss on the cheek, almost to say, like, I'm back, I brought help. The fact that Waldo was able to take action so quickly really made it sure that the situation didn't get any worse than it already was. And, you know, Waldo hasn't left my side. He's been with me this entire time since I've come home. So not only is he cute and smart, but he's a hero too.
Thanks, buddy.
Oh, Waldo. Listen, this is a pretty nasty fall she had. Recovery is going well. Jess has had surgery. She's hoping to be out walking with Waldo in about 6 weeks' time. He seems to be enjoying all this love. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime, on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.